Look, Hemi is back in Blasphemi, and right now we're gonna show you how this thing got rebuilt at Harrell Engine and Dyno and why. Let's recap. 2022, went back to Hot Rod Drag Week with Tony Angelo, nuked the motor like on the very first pass. We had a problem with the fuel pump. So Tony and I and our friend Jake rebuilt the Hemi using the one spare piston I had and a new set of rings. And then Drag Week got rained out, it never finished, and we never made a pass. I did make one later on at Bowling Green. We went like 30 to 155. It was not impressive. So we took the car back to Pete Harrell at Harrell Engine and Dyno in Mooresville, North Carolina. Dynoed it 3 times, trying to figure out, why doesn't this thing really make power? I lifted a little early. Oh, that ain't good. And it was at that point Pete and I started talking, and we realized that in the mad thrash to rebuild this engine for Drag Week 2022, we had some parts compatibility issues, and that resulted in less compression than we wanted, and also not installing the camshaft where we wanted it in terms of the cam timing. So after struggling on the dyno to put 1,000 to the tires, which is not horrible, but not amazing, we decided to pull it out of the car, and what did we find? We found one collapsed ring land, one piston, number 2, with no ring tension in the top ring, and just a couple other things that we were like, glad we took it apart. So Joe went down there this week to hang out with Pete and rebuild the motor. I was hanging out with my kids because my wife was out of town, and you know, they're young. Somebody needs to make sure they don't burn down the house. That was me. And so those 2 dudes got the motor back together. Joe and I just dropped it in the car last week. I'm about to leave to film Roadkill. I'll be gone for a week, but when I get back, Joe and I are gonna wrap this thing up, make some more mods to the car, and then I'm off to race Freiberger and his Model A, which is awesome, and I cannot wait. Here's the footage of the engine getting rebuilt, as well as some nuggets of knowledge that maybe you can use on your future builds, courtesy of Pete Harrell.
We are back at Harrell Engine and Dyno with Pete here. We are here today to assemble the motor for Blasphemi. It was a little bit hurt.
Right.
Not too bad.
Not bad.
But it needed some changes done.
Right.
So what all are the changes that we actually made?
Well, really there's just one change, and that's we have an adjusted piston that's going to give us a little more dome so we get a little bit more compression. And also in that process, we deepened this valve relief, which is hopefully going to allow us to put the cam in where I want it to be.
Supposed to be.
Right. Instead of where it's got to be. Between the 2 things, I think that'll give us a significant advantage here. Awesome. And the other thing is this piston is coated in line to lines, a braidable coating, which I use quite a bit of here. And that helps kind of tighten up the piston wall clearance a little bit. It'll wear in. Really, that's the only changes. You know, the one change allows 2 changes.
How much of that does that like wear off over time?
It depends how it's set up from the beginning, but like not much. What'll happen is it'll wear in some on break-in. We'll change the filter, and pretty much after that, it's not going to wear much. So there's initial wear in that because of that we can set the piston to wall clearance tighter, and it'll only rub off what it needs. So it's kind of allows itself to adjust to its optimal size, if that makes sense.
It's amazing what coatings have done these days.
Yeah, right. Now you've got to change the filter in this process because it will put coating in the filter,
right? And
you got to get it out before you go to really ripping on it, you know.
Right.
But it's great stuff. I use tons of it, and now we're going to have it on this thing.
So what are we doing first?
First, we're going to get the crank in here. I've already filed the rings and stuff.
I can see that.
Right. We're going to reuse the main bearings. They look great. We're going to stick them right back in here. That's it, really. We'll get that in, then we'll get the rods on the pistons. I measured up the rod bearing clearance yesterday to get a little bit ahead of the game, and we'll just start slamming this thing together.
Awesome. Let's get it done.
Cool.
I know Mike's excited to get it back together.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully it'll pick things up a little bit.
What point would you think, okay, they need new bearings?
When I see obvious signs of wear, which these are coated, we had them coated, and they're designed to wear a little bit. Overall, you'll see there's very minimal wear, and any wear that is there is going to happen again as soon as we crank this thing. When there's significant wear, or when I feel that there's wear that's happened from a lot of abuse, and with these, that's just not what I'm seeing. There's a little bit of wear right here, but if we put a new set in, I'll guarantee it's going to do the same thing as soon as we release the clutch a time or two. So there's no point in changing these. These are a real soft bearing as well, so they're always going to show a little bit, but it's not like an issue. One thing that he'll have to look at as far as oiling, I'm thinking somebody makes an adapter to go on here to get his dry sump oil in.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But he does need to, well, obviously he'll have to figure something out there, or else he won't have any Earl. Pretty much all cranks that are good cranks for something like this, nowadays they send them so small because everybody with a blower wants them tiny, so they got tons of clearance, which I can't stand because I'd rather get that my way, Right. But because of that, I got a lot of times I'll run coating to get up some of that back, or one bearings if I can get one bearings. A lot of times you can't get them, so I'll just coat, But that's just part of it. The Pro Mod stuff's the worst. Like those things will come 3, 4, 5 thousand small everywhere. Let's see what I got. It's got a pilot bearing in it. Normally I just stick my finger in there, but kind of don't fit. Sometimes those things will try to fall off when you tap them in there. I just go far enough to get the bolt started or the nut started, but like when you're tapping them, it'll knock the bearing off and you're pulling it back out.
Yeah. That pretty much the bulk of your work these days are LS motors.
Yeah.
It's crazy how wild those things have just blown up.
From my perspective, it was a natural transition for me because I started on small block Fords. Used to be in my shop was 80% small block Fords, Well, LS is just, I call it second gen small block Ford, The LS guys hate to hear that, but it's the truth. They're super easy to work on, so that's why they're popular, cheap and easy. And they make power. The motor that's in Beer Money is a 6.2 stock aluminum block, which according to, the conventional wisdom sucks. The thing makes like 2,000 horsepower every pass. Hundreds of passes, never a problem. It's crazy.
Wow, that car is insane.
Like it just goes and goes and goes. Doesn't care. Keep expecting it to tear up. That day never comes. It just keeps going and going and going.
So what's your guess? If everything goes back together right, the way you want it to this time? To the tires? Put a number down?
I would hope it'd get closer to 11. They're not something I build every day, so I can't just say, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like some of these combinations, I just do them all the time. And I can tell you about what it's going to do, But these changes will usually help out quite a bit. I'm pretty sure that no matter what it makes on the dyno, he's going to have to detune a little bit to run 850.
Yeah, that's a run into that.
Yeah. Ain't no way it's not going to try to run off from that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in screwing stuff together with something where you have feel of it.
Right. Because instead of just zapping it together.
Those things are great, you know, in the right spot. But like, they also can cause all kinds of problems. Like, I'll go ahead and tell you, turbo V-band flanges, I'll bet, somebody did a study of it, 90% of those failures are because of impact guns. Because if you impact one of those together, feel that nut. It's hot as, you can't even hold it after it's on. It's hot as fire. But everybody uses them.
So we ran into a little bit of an issue. Not much. Pete knocked it out pretty quick.
Yeah, so basically, this is a continuance of our original issue that we didn't catch. So there's these pistons, the first pistons were originally made for a steel rod. We had to switch to an aluminum rod. Well, one of the things that an aluminum rod usually requires is a little bit wider. The small end of the aluminum rod is usually a little wider. So you have to account for that in the piston. So in other words, the new pistons, the rod wouldn't fit in. So we had to trim just a little smidge on either side to get room. And we had to do that on the first set. I just forgot about it. We need to make sure we tell CP to alter the plan. If we ever have any more made, we need to tell them, and then I won't have to do it in the mill. It'll be already done. Not their fault. That's engine building. That's how it goes.
Simple enough, and now we start hanging rods.
Yep. Now we're hanging rods. Got all our rods on our pistons ready to go in the motor. You can tell my stupid piston rack here needs to be extended because any big block rods hit here and they don't let the thing sit like it's supposed to. I don't know why. Nobody seems to make one for a big block, but anyhow. Here's our new piston, and the difference between the new and the old is the dome is taller on the new guy. So the dome volume is increased, and that's going to raise our compression ratio. That's the main difference here. The other difference is the valve relief's just a little bit deeper here than it is here. And that will allow us to get our cam timing a little more like we want it to be, instead of what it kind of had to be to not crash into stuff. So those are really the only two engineering differences in this motor versus the old one. We're not really changing anything else, but that should be a big difference though.
You know, you would think at this day and age they would make a better compression tool.
Problem is, a lot of times I gotta cut them and slit them because I need something weird, a 4505 or something.
Right.
And then it's no longer ideal for what it was originally intended for. But it's just part of it. It's part of the fun.
Those guys with the outside stuff, those are the ones buying you new recompression tools.
Yeah. Right. Should be.
All right, guys, as you can see, we've got pistons in the holes. Check out these custom FSM. Yeah, when I grow up, I want to have my name on my pistons too. These are badass. Very, very cool.
so we're setting up cam timing. I just rolled it the way it was, and as predicted, it's retarded a good bit. So it checks about 115 3/4, and we want to be about 112. So I'm gonna loosen these 4 lockdown studs and roll it forward a little bit, and we'll spin it again and see how close we are.
The degree wheel's floating.
Yeah.
Not slopping it.
Yeah, it's moving. Change up.
Well, that'll change a few degrees here and there.
I was like, damn, I know I didn't move it that
I was gonna say, you only moved it a little bit, and
Yeah.
I'm like, wow,
How the hell could that
that's
be?
a huge change just by moving that little bit. People at home, you listening? Make sure your degree wheel is nice and tight.
See, I got a custom ultra stretch
Push rod?
indicator tip here. That works pretty good.
Is it all the way down in the cup?
Yeah. And it also helps to have a long ratchet on here so you can have some leverage over it. It helps you kind of dial right in.
A lot smoother.
Yeah. If you have a short one, you're gonna struggle. And especially a new motor, because they just they ratchet a little bit. See how the indicator just jumps a little bit. All right, so there is,
74.5?
yeah, even worse, but that makes sense because we had to move it the wrong way. There's 69.
$155.
155. That should be closer. Pretty close. 69 plus 155. 224. How about 112. Perfect. All right.
So that puts the cam timing at what? Roughly?
Well, that puts the center line at 112, which is where I want it, right?
Right.
Now, we don't know for sure we can run it there yet until we check our clearance.
Yeah.
But more than likely we can, I'm sure we can run it closer than where we were, So that thing was almost 4 degrees laid back. That's what we had to do last time to get it to have, clearance.
Valve
Right.
and piston clearance.
Right where we would felt comfortable that we weren't gonna crash something into something else,
All right.
All right, so that's good. I'm gonna take this back apart and lock all this down, and then we'll check our piston and valve clearance and see if we're okay there. But hopefully we will be.
All right. About to check the valve clearance. Pete's got some putty down there on the piston.
Yeah, there's more than one way to do this, but
It's always more than one way to skin a cat.
right. But this is quick and easy, and it'll tell us what we need to know.
Right here.
Yeah, there we go. take it apart.
Let it go squish and then take it all back apart.
Take it back apart. We'll just, usually I try to cut it with a razor and see what it looks like. You know, you could, like I said, there's more than one way to do this. You can put a checking spring on it and put a dial indicator on it and keep playing with it while you're, that's a good, really effective way. But sometimes this old dumb way works pretty good.
Moment of truth. Oh, you look like it touched it, Pete.
Yeah, we're good.
All right.
We're good.
And that was pretty much the whole reason for this.
Yeah, right. We're just
Other than a couple hurt pistons.
Right, just to make sure we got clearance, because before we were super tight, and
yeah,
now we're in better shape. So that's good. There's no reason to even check that. It looks night and day better. So now we'll have more compression and
more cam timing.
The cam timing's going to be more
where it's supposed to be.
Right. So in other words, when we pump this motor now, it's going to pump way higher than what it did, you know, which is a good sign. So now we can both.
So with that, we're probably, I mean, it didn't even touch it.
No.
And you filled this whole thing. God, that's a lot of clearance.
Yeah, well, I think it did touch it, but it's just kind of hard to tell.
Maybe a little back here.
Right, yeah, but this whole, it's not very deep there, you know what I mean? Like the distance from here to here, it's probably only, you know, 100th thou or so, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But that's way better than what it was. So now we can leave our cam where it should be, which is the whole plan.
And where's our cam sitting now, you think?
Now it's
as far as
112 degrees.
Okay.
Intake center line. Right. But before it was about close to 116. And I checked it just cursory before we moved it. It was 115.75.
Right.
So, and that's why I remember I had to lay it back a good bit to get it where I was confident we weren't going to, you know,
smack a valve.
Right, go tagging valves. You know, a big block stick shift deal, like you got to make sure you got room, because.
And you know who drives this car. There's definitely some driver error behind this.
Sometimes there's money shifts involved.
Yes, yes. It's like my favorite T-shirt with the Hemi just eating $100 bills.
Yeah.
It's the best shirt in the world.
Right.
And that's what they do.
Right.
Race car parts.
Right.
All right. So now we can
now we can bolt the heads on.
Start final assembly for the long block.
For the top, yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, as you can see, we have a complete short block here, ready to go home to Finnegan's garage and get shoved back into Blasphemi. We have a few more upgrades to do when we get back home. But for now, we are complete here. We've got new pistons, a little taller, a little different. Cam timing set where we want it.
Exactly where we want it.
It's not.
It's not.
Does it need to go special ed class?
No, it doesn't need to ride a short bus anymore.
Okay, good deal.
Right.
All right. So the next time you guys see this, it'll be in the car and probably on the dyno back here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say 1135.
Okay. We'll see. There's actually a lot of changes that we haven't even discussed. There's going to be dry sump.
New dry sump.
We're going to be coil and plug,
Coil
which
and plug.
should have been a long time ago. So there's a lot of improvements that hard to quantify here. You know.
Right.
So we'll know shortly.
We'll see. We're going to make Mike's butt pucker.
Right. Yeah.
All right.